Then, when darkness had dropped, Grendel went up to Heorot, wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done. He found them sprawled in sleep, suspecting nothing, their dreams undisturbed. The monster's thoughts were as quick as his greed or his claws. He slipped through the door, and there in the silence snatched up 30 men, smashed them, unknowing in their beds, and ran out with their bodies, the blood dripping behind him, back to his lair, delighted with the night's slaughter. At daybreak, with the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked, and in that grey morning broke their long feast with tears and laments for the dead. Hrothgar, their lord, sat joyless in Heorot, a mighty prince mourning the fate of his lost friends and companions, knowing by its tracks some demon had torn his followers apart. He wept, fearing the beginning might not be the end. And that night Grendel came again, so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough, no savage assault quench his lust for evil. Then each warrior tried to escape him, searched for rest in different beds, as far as Heorot as they could find, seeing how Grendel hunted when they slept. Distance was safety. The only survivors were those who fled him. Hate had triumphed. So Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, one against many, and won. So Heorot stood empty, and stayed deserted for years. 12 winters of grief for Hrothgar, king of the Danes, sorrow heaped at his door by hell-forged hands. His misery leaped the seas, was told and sung in all men's ears, how Grendel's hatred began, how the monster relished his savage war on the Danes, keeping the bloody feud alive, seeking no peace, offering no truce, accepting no settlement, no price or golden land, and paying living for one crime only with another. No one waited for reparation from his plundering claws. That shadow of death hunted in the darkness, stalked Hrothgar's warriors, old and young, lying in waiting, hidden in the mist, invisibly following them from the edge of the marsh, always there, unseen. So mankind's enemy continued his crimes, killing as often as he could, coming, alone, bloodthirsty and horrible. Though he lived in Heorot when the night hit him, he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's glorious throne, protected by God, God whose love Grendel could not know. But Hrothgar's heart was bent. In the best and most noble of his council debated remedies, sat in secret sessions, talking of terror and wondering what the bravest warriors could do. And sometimes they sacrificed to the old stone gods, made heathen vows, hoping for hell's support, the devil's guidance in driving their affliction off. That was their way, and the heathen's only hope, hell always in their hearts, knowing neither God nor his passing as he walks through our world, the Lord of heaven and earth. Their ears could not hear his praise nor know his glory. Let them beware, those who are thrust into danger, clutched at by trouble, yet can carry no solace in their hearts, cannot hope to be better. Hail to those who will rise to God, drop off their dead bodies, and seek our Father's peace. So the living sorrow of Halfdane's son simmered, bitter and fresh, and no wisdom or strength could break it. That agony hung on king and people alike, harsh and unending, violent and cruel, and evil. In his far-off home, Beowulf, Hegloc's follower, and strongest of the Geats, greater and stronger than anyone anywhere in this world, heard how Grendel filled nights with horror, and quickly commanded a boat fitted out. Proclaiming he'd go to that famous king, would sail across the sea to Hrothgar. Now, when help was needed, none of the wise ones regretted his going. Much as he was loved by the Geats, the omens were good, and they urged the adventure on. So Beowulf chose the mightiest men he could find, bravest and best of the Geats, 14 in all, and led them down to the boat. He knew the sea, would point the prow straight to that distant Danish shore. Then they sailed, set their ship out on the waves under the cliffs. Ready for what came, they wound through the currents, the seas beating at the sand, and were borne in the lap of their shining ship, lined with gleaming armor, going safely in that oak-hard boat to where hearts took them. The wind hurried them over the waves. The ship foamed through the sea like a bird, until the time they had known it would take. Standing in the round-curled prow they could see sparkling hills, high and green, jutting up over the shore, and rejoicing in those rock-steep cliffs, they quietly ended their voyage. Jumping to the ground, the geese pushed their boat onto the sand and tied it in place, mail shirts and armor rattling. They swiftly moored their ship, and then they gave thanks to God for their easy crossing. High on a wall, a Danish watcher patrolling along the cliffs saw the travelers crossing the shore, their shields raised and shining. He came riding down, Hrothgar's lieutenant, spurring his horse, needing to know why they had landed, these men in armor. Shaking his heavy-hit spear in their faces, he spoke. "Whose soldiers are you? You've been carried in your deep-keeled ship across the sea to this country of mine. Listen! I've stood on these cliffs longer than you know, keeping our coast free of pirates, raiders, sneaking ashore from their ships, seeking our lives and our gold. None had ever come more openly, and yet you offered no password, no sign from my prince, no permission from my people for your landing here. Nor have I ever seen, out of all the men on this earth, one greater than has come with you. No commoner carries such weapons unless his appearance and his beauty are both lies. You! Tell me your name, and your father's. No spies go further onto Danish soil than you come already. Strangers from wherever it was you sailed. Tell it, and tell it quickly. The quicker the better, I say, for us all. Speak, say, exactly who you are, and from where, and why."